Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. We're going to give it just a few more moments here to let more participants join the webinar, and we'll begin shortly. All right, we'll start now. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Preston Locker, and I am pleased to welcome you to the Green Hydrogen to eFuels virtual conference brought to you by the representative of German business, GACC West. We are currently hosting a virtual Green Hydrogen Power to X delegation this week for companies in the renewable space, and on this occasion of their visit, have organized this week's activities, including today's conference. The German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action has funded this delegation through the Export Initiative, helping companies in the energy sector, especially in the fields of renewable energy, energy efficiency, smart grids, and storage technologies to enter foreign markets. We would like to thank the German Federal Ministry for their continued support. Now, I'd like to thank our extraordinary partners for this event: the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, the Consulate General of the Federal Republic of Germany of San Francisco, Mittelstand Global and Export Initiative, RENAC, the Renewables Academy, Renewable Hydrogen Alliance, eFuel Alliance, the California Fuel Cell Partnership, the German Chamber of Industry and Commerce of Stade, the German Chamber of Industry and Commerce of Kiel, and the Green Hydrogen Coalition. I invite you to join me for the next 2 hours to gain rare industry insights from the public and private sectors, where experts address the future of hydrogen as a renewable, use cases, and transatlantic cooperation potentials. Today, we will feature a keynote highlighting where Germany currently stands and what the future holds, presentations from 3 of our German delegation members, including Bioenergy Concept, Man Energy Solutions, and Electrokea, followed by a panel discussion about how Germany and California can best move forward with green hydrogen to e-fuel solutions and use cases. But before I begin, I would like to thank our acquisition partner, Laura Scharlach, Division Manager for Projects within the Export Initiative Energy at RENAC, the Renewables Academy. Laura is also a senior consultant on behalf of the German Federal Ministry of Economics and Climate Action. Laura, I'll hand the time now over to you.
Thank you very much, Preston. Can you hear me well? So, good morning. Okay, perfect. So let me quickly share my screen. Can you see it now as a full screen as well?
We can.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. So good morning to California, good afternoon to Germany, or good evening to Germany. First, I would like to thank the German American Chamber of Commerce, my project partners from San Francisco. Thanks a lot for organizing these 2 conference days. The first one was on Tuesday, the second one is today. And of course, I would like to thank our German delegates, our German companies who will present their technologies and solutions here today. And of course, a big thanks to the speakers from the United States. I'm really looking forward to the next 2 hours to interesting presentations and to updates on green hydrogen. As Preston already mentioned, my name is Laura Scharlach. I am working for the Renewables Academy in Germany. We are based in Berlin. We are a company mostly active in the field of capacity needs assessment, capacity building, trainings in the field of renewable energies, energy efficiency, and hydrogen, the brand new green hydrogen technology. And there I'm a unit director for project within the German Energy Solutions Initiative. The next 10 minutes, I would like to quickly inform you about the program, and I've also prepared some slides on the German energy transition, the so-called Energiewende. What we are doing here, why am I here today? What is the German Energy Solutions Initiative? The initiative facilitates business partnerships in the field of renewables, energy efficiency technologies, smart grids, green hydrogen, and storage technologies. So we are very much active in all the fields of renewables and energy efficiency. And this whole program exists since 2002, actually, which is based on a German parliament decision to, on the one hand, support small and medium-sized German companies. So we are really focusing on the small companies, not so much on the big ones. We also want to distribute smart and sustainable energy solutions and to contribute to international climate protection. I'm doing this since almost 10 years. I'm at the Renewables Academy since 2009. And as RENAC, as the Renewables Academy, we are also active in this program over 10 years. The whole program is coordinated and financed by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. What do we offer? So on the one hand, we offer information about German energy solutions. We offer networking and business opportunities with German companies, both in the United States and in Germany, of course, all over the world, but in this case, in the United States. We offer know-how exchange and showcase of flagship projects all around the world. There's also a huge database and relatively new website. Here you see the link. I will post it in the chat later on as well. The website is currently existing in English and in German. On the website, you find an online database with profiles and contact information of German companies. So you can really like search for technologies. You can search for cities, for destinations. So you find information, you find the contact person and the contact details. It's really worth to look, and you can also download latest information about the German energy solutions, fact sheets, market analysis, financial fact sheets. So have a look, and you can also subscribe for the upcoming newsletter. It comes out every 3 months, and it's of course free of charge. So I would be happy if you sign up for the newsletter, and we will then provide you with all the brand new information that we get from the ministry. Networking and business opportunities. The biggest part of this program are the energy trade missions, while we are here today. Yeah, usually if there wouldn't be any COVID, we would be all in San Francisco today or during the entire week. We didn't do any trips in person since 2020. Actually, we are now about to start again to travel. So this time is virtually, but we hope the next energy trade mission to California will be in person, the one in September. And these energy trade missions, they always consist of this one-day seminar, the so-called opening conference. Of course, today it's a bit shortened because it's virtual, and the individual business meetings. So all of our German delegates, they got an individual B2B schedule from the chamber with business meeting with potential partners, clients, so on. We have also the foreign trade fairs. I think a lot of you might know the Intersolar, which also took part in San Francisco the last years. And we are also very active over there with the German Pavilion, with German exhibitors, an information forum and events where you can learn about German sustainable energy solutions and also network with the companies on the booth. Know-how exchange, we also organize fact-finding missions to Germany, either virtual or sorry, there's a mistake, either virtual or in person as well. For now, we also organize these fact-finding missions only virtual, but yeah, hopefully second half term of this year, then again in person. And these fact-finding missions, they are usually between 3 and 5 days. It depends a bit on the destination from where our delegates come. You get first-hand information on German energy solutions here in Berlin or in any other German city, and we also organize on-site visits and networking opportunities. So we really go on site. We really go to the distributors. We check plants, we check power plants, we visit PV plants, wind farms, biogas plants, so also the wide range. There are also the German training weeks in developing countries. This is conducted by the German International Corporation, the so-called GIZ. There, German companies represent themselves as trainers, as technology trainers, and we offer their technology-specific trainings or trainings on project development. But this is really mostly like in Southeast Asia and Sub-Sahara Africa. I think one of our delegates I've seen already on a German training week. So yeah, it's a really good program. Now I would like to say some words on the German energy transition. Yeah, the Energiewende, I think, yeah, we call it Energiewende, combines security of supply, cost effectiveness, and environmental protection. So it means with this energy transition, Germany aims to create an environmentally sound, secure, and affordable energy supply. The transformation of Germany's energy supply system towards renewable energy sources is, of course, the key to achieve effective environmental protection and long-term climate goals. You all know with the current situation with Russia and the Ukraine, it became more and more important to really be to not be depending on the Russian gas and on the Russian energy. So currently, there's the Intersolar in Munich, and the Intersolar fair is really full, is really crowded. So you see people have a lot to do in the field of renewable energies, and yeah, more than ever, it's really important to get independent from foreign energy. At the same time, a high level of energy security and cost-effective solutions are crucial, of course, to ensuring that energy remains affordable and for Germany to remain a competitive industrial base in the long term. So our current price for power is about 30 cents per kilowatt hour, which is not so cheap. And yeah, it becomes more and more expensive, which is a huge problem for many of our, of course, for people living in Germany. Here you see the Energiewende is Germany's long-term energy and climate strategy. On the graph, you see that we aim to cut our emissions by at least 65% by 2030 and 80% by 2040. Yeah, high targets, but I think we can achieve it. Now, also with our new government, with our new energy minister or trade minister, he's very much into this whole energy topic. So yeah, I'm looking forward, and I think we can make it. Compared with 1990, emissions in Germany fell by almost 41% in 2020, and the progress was really made in all sectors, especially in industrial energy efficiency. Here you can also see another graph where you can see that Germany has made progress in reducing its emissions, but of course more action is always needed. You see here in the field of waste, of transportation, commerce, industry, agricultural, and energy industrial efficiency. So you see it really goes down, and yeah, which is a good sign. Capacities of renewables are growing steadily. Here you see the installed capacities of Germany's most important renewables. So the graph is from 2020. I don't have any updated numbers for now. So you see the biggest part is still the wind farm, the wind energy, with almost 30,000 installations in Germany, followed by PV, bioenergy, and water. Of course, the Energiewende enjoys wide support with the German population. So yeah, of course, so people support the energy transition, although it costs a bit, or not only a bit, it costs a lot. But so there, yeah, I would say in general, people are very open to the Energiewende in Germany because they more and more get to know that we need to be independent from energy from abroad. So especially in the last couple of months with our situation and with the war, we get more and more support from the Germans for the Energiewende. Of course, the energy transition has positive effects at various levels of the economy. So on the graph on the right side, you see that the development and application of renewable energies, as well as energy efficiency technologies, services, product results in environmental and health benefits, increased security, and investments which foster economic growth in a sustainable sector. Of course, we also have an increase in the regional added value via economic activities. So especially in the south of Germany, in Bavaria, in Baden-Württemberg, we have many companies which are active in the field of renewables. And yeah, this is of course a good sign for the German trade, for the German economy. This was it, yeah, not so quickly, but try to do my best. For now, from me, I will be here the next 2 hours, and I will also would be happy to answer your questions in the chat. And for now, I would like to thank you and to give back the word to Preston. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. It looks like we already have a question coming through. How can people apply to take part in the export initiative?
Thanks a lot for the question. So I think this is a question from a US delegate, right? So yeah, if you want to take part in this initiative, so you should definitely sign up for the newsletter, and you should definitely sign up for the newsletter from the German American Chamber of Commerce, because as soon as we plan something like a delegation trip to Germany or a delegation to the United States, you will get informed. And then you can, of course, take part either as a delegate for our trips to Germany, or you can take part in one of our next conferences within the trade missions. So yeah, stay tuned and subscribe for the newsletter.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
And now we'll dive right into our delegation presentations. These experts of green hydrogen, power to X technologies, and eFuels demonstrate the future of our renewable energy industry, highlighting technologies and methods ready for immediate implementation. Our first expert presentation will be by Christoph Osterbrook from Bioenergy Concept. Bioenergy Concept works on green hydrogen technology to power large commercial vehicles via a mobile green hydrogen refueling station with a patented cartridge system. The company is currently looking for partners in California for manufacturing, distribution, and licensing. Christoph, I'll hand the time over to you. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. There you go.
Yes. Good morning to California. Yes, my name is Christoph Oesterbrook from Bioenergy Concept. We have been, I do a short sort of explanation what we've been doing. Like originally we started with anaerobic digestion, building biogas plants, planning and as an EPC. We have done 2 biogas projects in California so far. And last year we installed or commissioned a pyrolysis system where we do pyrolysis oil and biochar from wood, demolition wood in Placer County. I have been working in the field of renewables for the last 30 years. And mostly with anaerobic digestion, but also did solar PV, and have been working with US companies in California to do biogas and the pyrolysis system last year. So I think I'll start with a presentation. So a few years back, we thought, well, actually, I was in California and I talked to some people there and they said, well, CNG is not really the future in California, but hydrogen would be. So we looked at different, or we looked at technologies to convert biogas to hydrogen, which is possible, which is not using an electrolyzer, but to do it with steam reforming. So you can actually convert biogas with steam reforming to hydrogen, and we would have like an efficiency of in the energy from the energy of 65% of the biogas, and then 65% would be in hydrogen in terms of energy content. But then, of course, the big question was like, how do we get the hydrogen to the customers? And we looked at the different system, and well, the common system, how I go down to the next. So, to the next screen, which is not. Yes, okay. So since we have worked on different patents, which one of the patents, the first patent we actually did was the vortex extraction digester, VED, which is biogas anaerobic digester, which has a conical floor, and the reason for this is that when we did the first digester in California, we found, well, there is a lot of sand coming down the flash lanes with the manure, and so this caused, of course, sedimentation in the digester, and like after 4 years, the digester had to be cleaned out the first time to get all the sand out of the system. Now the digester is still working, which is good, since it's now 13 years, or no, 15 years actually in operation. But we had to look at like different technology to sort of deal with this problem, and that was the conical floor, which is very different from normal digesters. Of course, California since has gone like on the digester side with lagoon digesters, which are suitable for large dairy farms. But on the smaller projects, I think, which have a future in the next, maybe in the next coming years, like this vortex digester would be a good solution for them. Now, talking about hydrogen, we looked at, as I said before, like look to convert the biogas to hydrogen, and then well, hydrogen has high energy content, but it is also, in order to transport it, it needs a lot of compression, and the compression needs a lot of energy. So we looked at different possibilities how to transport the hydrogen to the customer, which is maybe a bus fleet or a truck fleet. And we, out of this, developed the okay, this is first like the digester in California. So converting hydrogen is either possible by steam reforming or by electrolyzers. And steam reforming, of course, if you have already biogas, is more efficient than electrolyzers. So this would be the normal sort of transport system. The hydrogen has to be compressed to about 700 to 1,000 bar. Then it's transported with a truck to a fueling system, and then it's compressed again or to get into the vehicle. So we thought, okay, how is this possible to do it somehow simpler? And we came up with the cartridge process where we are compressing the gas at the hydrogen at the site of production, which can be from a wind farm or a solar farm or a biogas plant, to into a cartridge to only 350 bar, because this is actually the pressure what the vehicle needs if running on a fuel cell. So we transport then the cartridges to the fuel cell fueling station, and then the cartridges are just exchanged, which is also reducing the time in fueling the vehicle. Now, this is, so this process we got patented in the end of last year. And we are looking for partners to actually do demonstration projects with them. And this is the sort of a photorealistic view of the system. So it's very simple. The empty cartridges, they're stored in the shelf system. There's a lift in the middle, which automatically sort of hoists the cartridge to the right height and then slides it into the reception unit on the vehicle. This might be a bus or a truck in this case. Yes, this is a bus. Now the advantage is that we save about 34%, 33, 34% on the compression of the gas, of the hydrogen, and that the refueling process of filling filling the hydrogen onto the bus is much faster than the normal sort of situation or the current situation. Yes, also driving without a bus driver becomes easier, because like the bus driver wouldn't have to leave the vehicle since he doesn't have to sort of or nobody has to, the system is automatically, so the bus automatically drives in the right position, and then the cartridges are exchanged fully automatic. Yes, thank you very much for your attention.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christoph, for joining us, and we're grateful that you were able to make it to the delegation. And now our second expert presentation is by Joseph Feldman from Electrokea. Electrokea is a power-to-gas company who has developed a patented biocatalyst to convert low-cost and stranded electricity and carbon dioxide into pipeline-grade renewable gas. Joe, I'll now give you 10 minutes here.
Great. Thank you, Preston, and greetings to everyone. I'm participating from Chicago. Electrokea is perhaps a really good example of collaboration between Germany and the US. Our technology was discovered at the University of Chicago, and the scale-up work from that university lab moved the company over to Europe, ultimately to its headquarters in Munich, Germany. And now I'm responsible for commercializing our grid-scale renewable gas in North America. Our goals from the start have been to help achieve the very ambitious climate goals in all the major markets. What we know is that conventional technologies like biogas upgrading will provide one piece of the puzzle, but they will not be sufficient to achieve substantial reductions that are required for us to meet the climate goals that have been set on an international basis from Paris and Glasgow and otherwise, and also the manifestation of those goals in local jurisdictions. So Electricaea is fundamentally focused on a grid scale solution related to the energy transition. We look for our technology to be able to leverage existing infrastructure to store, distribute, and consume the renewable gas that we produce, which we refer to as biocat methane. Our biological catalyst produces biocat methane with a combination of green hydrogen and CO2 that would be otherwise wasted or perhaps vented. We have conducted demonstration projects in Denmark, Switzerland, and in the US. And those demonstration projects in Europe successfully injected gas onto the local grids in Denmark and Switzerland, validating our ability to deliver at a grid spec and doing so at scale. This is a brief chemistry lesson, if I may. The work of Electricaea is really all done, I'll say the important work is all done by the archaea. That's the biological system that's shown in the electron micrograph to the lower right-hand corner. Those little green sausages are the archaea. They've been around for between 3 and 4 billion years, and they have an extraordinary ability to catalyze hydrogen and CO2 into methane. The hydrogen can come from any source. Of course, the customers of our methane care about the carbon intensity, and so green hydrogen is expected. The CO2 can come also from any source. We work with CO2 from various biogas, landfill gas, industrial sources, whether biological or industrial. Any of those systems can provide the two crucial feedstocks, hydrogen and CO2, converting into methane and water as a byproduct. In the upper right-hand corner, you see a lab scale vessel that what looks like a green smoothie is the archaea in a hot water bath with a sort of a stir stick, and the input gases are provided into the system and methane bubbles out. Our biocat methane creates value in, I'll say, 3 ways. First of all, we are producing a gas that is suitable for existing storage, distribution, and consumption infrastructure. So we're selling a gas that has that thermal value. The carbon attributes of our gas are also crucial. We have a very low carbon intensity, and so are able to qualify for programs that demand that, customers that demand that. In North America, we see markets evolving in California, Oregon, Washington State, and in Canada, in Ontario, Quebec, and in British Columbia, with other jurisdictions following quickly behind. Energy storage is also a really crucial part of the value that's created with biocat methane. As the penetration of intermittent renewables, so especially solar and wind, as the available capacity from those sources increases, the imbalance between production and consumption becomes more out of sync, and that could create the potential for wasted capacity. That capacity can instead be used to generate hydrogen and to have that energy stored in the bonds of the methane, which creates in effect a long-term battery solution. Here are the 3 pilot sites that I referred to earlier, one in Switzerland, one in Denmark, and one in Colorado. The Colorado site is presently being relocated to an anaerobic digester site at a dairy farm in Maine in collaboration with Summit Utilities. And if you're interested, you can tour our Solothurn site in about a 6-minute video that you can find on our website. It's available in both English and in Quebecois, because we have a lot of market opportunities there. This is a brief overview of the operations of our technology. So the inputs shown in the upper left-hand corner are hydrogen and CO2 delivered in a 4-to-1 ratio. The outputs are biocat methane. If the input source is raw biogas or raw landfill gas, the methane that's present to start will bubble right through the reactor and be upgraded. And there's also the possibility of using the heat for beneficial use, and the gas then can be consumed locally or injected onto the gas grid. Hydrogen has been an important opportunity in the world of energy transition, and we certainly see lots of potential for green hydrogen. You know, one of the challenges that's encountered is green hydrogen is, I'll say, relatively easy to make. It's a little bit harder to transport or store, and it requires special infrastructure. The chart shown here at the right, which is from a publication about 5 years ago, shows that converting hydrogen from a power to gas fuel on its own to power to gas methane provides for substantially larger discharge times, so longer retention of energy, and at much larger capacities. So we see, again, a mosaic of different solutions that are going to be important. We think hydrogen will be important for applications such as discussed by the bioenergy presentation. But we think that for a grid scale, that methane will have numerous advantages. Lastly, we're focused on identifying potential partners that might provide CO2 from a wide range of sources. We have the ability to work with agriculture, dairy, swine, also landfills and organic diversions, wastewater treatment plants, and other industrial processes. We certainly greatly appreciate all the support from the German American Chamber of Commerce. Numerous contacts among potential customers and regulators and other market partners have been enabled through our multi-year relationship with the Chamber, and we're delighted to participate today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe, for your presentation and the kind words. It's much appreciated. I'll hop over now to our final expert presentation from Stefan Koch from MAN Energy Solutions. MAN Energy Solutions is a multinational company that produces large bore diesel engines and turbo machinery for marine and stationary applications, marine propulsion systems, and power plant applications from turbochargers. Stefan, I'll now hand the time over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Preston, for a nice introduction. Let me know when you see my full screen mode. You can see?
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, sorry for delay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you listen from, to everybody. As Preston explained, my name is Stefan Koch. I'm from MAN company in Germany, location Deggendorf, and I'm the head of global sales for reactors, apparatus, and now also for decarbonization. And our new topic is engineering a sustainable future. So that's the keywords Laura mentioned in the introduction, sustainable solutions, and also in our new company name, Energy Solutions. That's our program for the future for decarbonization. As Preston explained a few words about company, we come from 3 different product lines: marine, energy storage, and industries. So we big, huge 2-stroke, 4-stroke engines for sea vessels. By the way, we develop now hydrogen, methane, methanol-driven ships, and even ammonia. So it's also on the engine side a contribution. Energy storage, I explain later on in detail, and industries is a side equipment for all big chemical plants. Okay, we are not a real small and medium-sized company. We have 13,000 employees. Last year, more than 3 billion in revenues. And we are a member of the Volkswagen Group, what not everybody might know. And also our shareholders from the passenger cars are very interested in our new technologies. My Deggendorf site, as I said, has 2 operation lines. That's for reactors for chemical industry, huge equipment, also operators for the petrochemical industry. And now the 3rd cornerstone is the decarbonization. What this picture means, I explain you later on. We offer a 360-degree approach, all service from one hand. We start with a basic development. We have our own R&D cluster, own lab. We develop processes together with partners, move it into production, and give an entire life cycle service. So where we come from really large equipment. These are key figures. So we like big pieces. So up to 1,800 metric tons, 550-degree, 10-meter diameter, 60-meter length. So we can serve really big reactors for decarbonization. And decarbonization, that's the miracle word we use every day. That's driver of our company strategy. Energy Solutions, MAN, won't contribute to this global challenge. A few words about the market outlook. Sorry, it's from a German association, some slides, but I talk today not about the gases, but about power-to-X, mainly power-to-liquid. And we see a huge potential in Germany and Europe. On the one hand, that's the bar for hydrogen, but also for the liquids power-to-X applications. A huge market potential expressed here in terawatt hours. And we see the ramp up now. And power-to-liquid is not longer in discussion if it's but when. Yeah, we have a conclusion in Europe and Germany. The passenger car fleet need liquids in an intermediate base at least, but especially the aviation sector and the maritime sector will need fuels in liquid fuels in the future. That's not longer under discussion. And this is the most important slide always from my presentation when I show clients. These covers everything what we have in mind. We see us, as I said, as a center of competence for synthesis. We heard a lot about CO2 and H2. We start here from synthesis and conversion. We don't care where the hydrogen and CO2 comes from. Of course, it should be hydrogen from renewable energies and the CO2 from other sources. And then we start with our synthesis. Different colors. That means methanation we deliver. It's chemical synthesis based methanation, not coming from a bio route. We take CO2 and hydrogen and make methane from it. We also have with partners our own methanol synthesis. For methanol, we can go further to kerosene or gasoline. Processes are more or less already developed, ready for some market. We also can go via reverse water gas shift, make a syngas and go to conventional Fischer-Tropsch synthesis to make again different kind of fuels. Ammonia synthesis or ammonia cracking is also under discussion now. And we heard before about the fuel cell vehicles. We also have an alternative route for the hydrogen transportation via liquid organic hydrogen carriers. A few words about methanation. This is a already developed 50 megawatt reference case. We are in deep discussion with several clients who are interested in such technology. It's ready to develop as a grassroots plant. Everything comes from MAN. We deliver the entire package, also acting as an EPC. And we have a proven case for that. That's a roughly 10 megawatt plant in Germany, in northern Germany, running for almost 10 years now, and all core technology comes from us, especially the methanation reactor system, but also the site equipment. Methanol. Here comes a picture from HIF. They are operating soon methanol to gasoline plant in Chile. It's called the Haruoni project. The society, the community knows this project very well. And the key equipment for the synthesis comes from us. And that's what I showed before. That's the skid for the methanol synthesis in our workshop. So as I also mentioned before, we do the basic engineering, the detailed engineering, and the final procurement and construction all out from one hand, ready for the market. Right now, we see a big hype for methanol. We are running for many projects. Methanol to sustainable aviation fuel or gasoline. We have a partner in Germany where we deliver the entire equipment chain. So first make from CO2 and hydrogen again methanol, and then in the next step synthesis to gasoline. A few demo plants are already under construction. And finally, we have the project Westküste 100 or Kerosene 100 with different partners, a public funded project to produce also kerosene for the aviation industry. Finally, reverse water gas shift and Fischer-Tropsch. As I mentioned, we are in deep cooperation with different process providers, especially for the Fischer-Tropsch synthesis. The reverse water gas shift technology will come from us. The advantage here is you make with reverse water gas shift CO2 and hydrogen, you convert to CO, take additional hydrogen, then you have the conventional syngas and go to the Fischer-Tropsch process with it, what is already developed and approved. There's one big commercial Fischer-Tropsch plant in the world, the Pearl Qatar project. And these reactors also come from us, 12 GTL reactors from us. Just to give you a number, in a renewable energy, such a reactor could work or revert equivalent of 1 gigawatt. And so we are very well prepared for the future. For all power to applications are ready for the markets. We have a business development team in the US. And if you have any interest, we can help you in different sections where you are interested in. That's all for the moment, and I'm happy to answer your question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Stefan. And I know that you're working with HIF as well down in Chile, and we have Brooke van de Griff who will be joining us from there. So hopefully we can hear more about this collaboration between you both. Thank you, Stefan. And now it's time for our keynote. Markus Rosenthal has an extended track record in public affairs and communications with his key focus on energy and climate policy with a view of the European Union. Marcus is currently head of policy at the BVES Energy Storage Systems Association, where he focuses on energy policy on an EU level with a focus on financing, hydrogen, mobility, real estate, and industry solutions. Marcus, I'll now hand the time over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry for the delay. I've asked Laura to show the presentation.
Laura, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there, but I don't have the presentation. I only have the first page that you just sent me, Marcus.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to show the
That would be amazing.
yeah. Okay. So a moment. Here we are. So can you see the presentation?
Yeah. Can you do
Yeah.
full screen?
Yeah. So here we are. Okay.
Yeah, and the first slide. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I'm going to start. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to start to briefly say who we are. The Energy Storage System Association is based in Germany. We are focusing a lot on German legislation, regulation, and also at the EU level. As you can see, we are participating also in global conferences. So the global outlook is for our members very important because they are active in markets around the globe. We represent all kinds of technologies. We don't have any preference for, let's say, hydrogen or battery. We do all of these technologies. Okay, so these are a few of our members. So the EU has a climate neutrality objective, a target, to become climate neutral in 2045. As you can see, from 2020, there's still a very, very long way to go. We have ongoing debate in Germany, across the globe, what is better for our decarbonized world? Is it more direct electrification, or is it green fuels and green hydrogen? Everything which is marked here as yellow is direct electrification, and you can see that will play, according to all market analyzers, a major role. Everything in purple, again, says there's also an increase of supply and increase of demand. And there's kind of an area where yellow and purple are mixing, and that's where the competition is going to happen in the future. We will see, for instance, that lorries are going to be run by electricity with batteries, and we're going to see lorries which are going to be run with green hydrogen. And that is completely dependent on whatever the customer is thinking is the right way. And I find it very important that the market should decide, the customer should decide what is the best application for the purpose he wants. And it's also very important that we don't, predict the future. It's rather to offer solutions which are right. So, what is energy storage? McKinsey has given a kind of very simplified version, which I love. Energy storage absorbs and then releases power, so it can be generated at one time and used at another. And I don't want to read out the official European Union directive definition. Basically, it's the same thing. The oddity in the German energy law is that we have a definition that storage is generating energy, and storage is also the last user of energy. To explain this, why that is the case in German energy law is very complicated, but believe me, all our engineers can't believe it. But I always tell them there's a political story, because it means a kind of interesting source of income for the government, because there are fees and taxes added to the fact that kind of energy is generated, and there is fee and taxes added to the fact that energy is used. And we are fighting as energy storage associations that we're going to have a clear definition for energy storage in the German energy law, and which is kind of not, we have a clear definition for generation and clear definition for use of energy, but we want to have one which also frees our products from additional fees and taxes. That's very important to us. The price for storage is declining by 5 to 10% per year. Now, as prices are kind of increasing everywhere, we've just been asked by a journalist last week, are the prices really declining as much? What we are seeing is a slowdown in price decline, but there are still declines. It doesn't matter if it's electrolyzers or batteries, and that is important fact and trend. Declining prices means it's going to be more competitive, and that is the crucial fact. Storage forms are many, but what's also interesting is kind of we have a big mega trend around the globe. We want to have the combination of renewables plus storage. Simple reason, I will come back later to that, is the sun is not shining in the night, but we want to have the electricity to switch on our lights. And storage, of course, means the security of supply. There are a few numbers, just give you a bit of flavor from last year about kind of how much energy is used in Germany. It is a lot. That's the basic core message of this slide. Briefly, I want to talk about hydrogen. There's a project in Namibia from a German company, Enertrack. They have wind turbines, and they're planning to produce hydrogen also for the European and German market. But what's very clear is they're going to have this hydrogen very likely in form of ammonium or methanol. They're not going to import it to Europe as hydrogen itself, because there's not enough transport capacity. There are 2 ships in the world which can transport hydrogen, and that's definitely not kind of the way how we can run a global market. What's interesting here is kind of the Namibia project, which is kind of also sponsored by the German government. Is planned to have 2 gigawatts in 2026, 2030, 5 gigawatts, and lots of investment there. And the long-term plan is really kind of to help to get Germany with imported ammonia, help kind of to get it slightly more independent. And there was all planned before Russia marched into Ukraine. I don't want to focus too much now on hydrogen, but one important issue now, which has changed completely. Green hydrogen was always seen as kind of really not competitive compared to fossil blue or gray hydrogen. This has completely changed now. We do have a gas price of about €1,000 per cubic meter. And that is kind of much above the price of green hydrogen. The only problem we don't have enough volume of green hydrogen now, but there is going to be new projects going to develop, and that's going to change also the structure, and it's going to make it more attractive. To give you a bit of flavor of what has happened and what's going to be the future in terms of the big mega trends, we've seen kind of the early 90s basic technologies, small wind turbines, small PV panels, very enthusiastic people, the nerds, which kind of bought it and installed it. Nowadays, in 2020, we are talking about systemic integration. We talk about flexibilization. Storage, for instance, offers lots of opportunities for flexible markets. Have the energy there when it is needed, not when it is produced. Digitalization is kind of very normal. We once tried to set up a digital working group, but all our members said we don't need this because we're too real-time digital. We do have real-time digital anyway in place, so that's kind of very normal to us. What we're also going to see is kind of the regulation due to the technological changes. The regulation is also going to change. I always say there is still a lot of trouble with the regulation. It stops lots of investment, but lots of companies are now prepared to invest because they know the regulation is going to change and they want to be the first mover when the market or the regulation is allowing the market to develop. So this is one fact about Germany. We have lots of wind. The background is red just to differentiate wind from solar in the south. You see all the lovely factories in the south. That's where BMW is produced. That's where Daimler is producing, part of Volkswagen also. So just, the car industry is based in the south. Kind of chemical industry is based in the south. Everything which is in demand for energy is based in the south. Solar can take on a certain role, but definitely not the role of wind, which is in the north. Our government is planning since many, many years to have a proper grid and bring the energy from the north to the south. Unfortunately, there are technical issues and the people don't like the cables. So there's lots of resistance. We as a storage association are saying we are pro-grid. We want to have a grid, but we can offer, of course, with storage grid optimization. Instead of building new grids everywhere, for lots of money, rather focus on grid optimization and use storage to have the frequency control, etc. So one step backwards on the history. You may know this all from your childhood. It was kind of somewhere a big energy company and smoking and lots of smoke, etc. And the energy just simply came out of the plug, all marvelous. But that was the old energy world with coal, nuclear power, gas stations. And that is a new energy world. It's kind of suddenly everybody's producing energy, everybody's using energy, possibly from the neighborhood, possibly in the area, from the regional area. And that is kind of really a complete change. Decentralization is a key word. And that is putting a huge pressure on policymakers and also on the old energy world. Interestingly, I just always love to refer to RWE, a big German energy company. How did they become big? With coal, then nuclear power. And the long-term CEO, he was also a big driver to go away from coal, to get into renewables, because he really understood that kind of if they keep on going to think in the centralized way, they're going to be out of business, because if many people have solar power on their roof, they don't stay customers. And that is the big change. What now is necessary is the new gold standard is to have green energy and make energy always available when it is needed. But Edison, he has invented the electricity grid. And also Mr. Siemens, a few years later, has reinvented it, but both of them have forgotten to invent storage. So that's our task, and all the members of this conference, find good solutions for storage. This is just kind of a picture, slightly older, but again from McKinsey, just shows how the costs are declining. And that is my favorite slide. It just simply shows from Bloomberg's their projection how the investment is going to look like in future into energy storage. The key problem of the slide, which is of course not, you can't see here, is the answer how to make energy storage bankable is not shown here. And that is a big, big, big question. I give you one real life example. We had recently in the house an explosion of an energy storage unit in the house. Nothing really has happened. Small fire, was distinct very easily. But of course, that is very bad news. And the bad news is mainly for the banks who are financing this, because the banks who were financing this project are member also of our association, and we had a discussion with them. And they said, to be honest, we don't know what we are financing. We need more information. And they're going to be now slightly more cautious, but they have now engineers really, and they're going to have an engineering team in future. That's one of the results of this accident. Engineering people who are going to make proper assessment. They're going to work with one big insurance company, Munich Re, which also have an interest to offer insurance solutions. But they also want to know for the future, what are the products, how reliable are they, what happens with an electrolyzer after 10 years, what happens with the battery after 10 years. They want to know, because they want to ensure that the investment is safe. Coming to investment is safe, the lovely thing about energy storage is you can do a lot of things. I just spoken on Tuesday at a conference and said the grid is only able to, or wires are only able to have energy in them or don't have energy. But then somebody said, no, we do also smart grids. That is true. So they can do a bit more, but this is only a small list of what energy storage can do. And I think that's very important for everybody who is thinking about energy storage. There are so many things where energy storage can be helpful. I promise you I'm going to show or going to talk about flexibility. And this is our most important slide now. It's really, the sun is shining during the day. We have in Brandenburg, which is in East Germany, the region which is surrounding Berlin. It's lots of countryside. And they don't have many people living there, but they produce, when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, 140% of renewable energy. Nobody can use it. And when the sun is going down, it drops down to 70 or 60% when the wind is blowing. And that is a very clear point where we say we need storage. Shall it be batteries? Shall it be thermal? Shall it be with batteries? Preston, you are here on the screen because you want to push me.
Just a little.
I'm happy to stay here. If I shall leave it here, time-wise.
I think so, but thank you for this great overview and insight into what Germany is currently doing in terms of energy solutions. I think it provides a great pathway for all of California and the rest of the US to lay down a roadmap as well. And thank you, Marcus, for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.
And now it is time for our panel discussion. Tobias Bloch, Head of Strategy and Content at the eFuel Alliance, will be today's moderator for our discussion. Tobias is an all-rounder when it comes to technical, economical, and political challenges at the interface between renewable energies and the automotive industry. As head of strategy and content, he coordinates the activities of the eFuel Alliance, a platform with more than 170 member companies for the market ramp-up of hydrogen-derived synthetic fuels. Also joining today are our panelists. Brooke Vandegrift is COO of HIF USA. Brooke has nearly 20 years experience developing and executing multi-billion-dollar energy infrastructure projects leading technical design, construction, and operations. Vinayaka Nakul Prasad is Corporate Strategy Manager and Global Hydrogen Lead at Siemens Energy. In his role, he is responsible for developing hydrogen-based decarbonization strategies, including gas turbines and power-to-X systems. And lastly, Narendra Paul, Director of Hydrogen Technology at the Hornblower Group, has over 19 years of industry-leading expertise in hydrogen technologies, where he established the initial hydrogen refueling infrastructure network for the materials handling market in North America. I made it all one breath, nearly. I'll now hand it over to our lovely panelists for joining us and to Tobias to lead our discussion today.
Yes, thanks a lot for the kind introduction and a warm welcome from my side. I hope that we will have an interesting panel discussion, and I'm so pleased that we have some of our members of the eFuel Alliance already today, like Electrofia, but also here like HIF or Siemens Energy. First of all, I would like to start with a short round of introduction. Then you can present yourself, your most important projects which you're working on right now, and of course why you think that hydrogen or hydrogen-derived e-fuels will play a major role in future. I would say, ladies first. Brooke, would you like to start? I know that you have some really interesting and large projects ongoing, not just in the US.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tobias, and all for joining today. Again, I'm the COO of HIF USA. HIF, which stands for Highly Innovative Fuels, is a global decarbonization company focused on making e-fuels from renewable energy. I would say our most exciting project to date is the one that Stefan from MAN spoke about earlier, which is our Haro Oni pilot project, currently under construction in the southern tip of Chile. Chile has the most phenomenal wind in the world, and so it just made sense to harness that resource and really convert it to a liquid fuel that that can be exported to population centers all over the world. We have phenomenal partners in our pilot project, including Siemens Energy and MAN, who obviously is constructing or fabricating the methanol skid. But basically what we do is take green hydrogen produced from wind and combine it with CO2 captured from the atmosphere, put it together in a methanol reactor to create green methanol, and then further convert it to other process fuels. Right now, gasoline is the most economically viable. Another German company that participates in our pilot is Porsche, as they are the off-taker of both the green methanol and the gasoline that we are producing. The origins of that project really lended itself to us looking in other locations all over the world, to where we could build much larger scale projects. And so I'm here representing our US team. Just 2 weeks ago, we announced our first site in Texas, where we will actually produce a very large scale, 200 million gallons per year of green gasoline e-fuels facility. And the synergies go even further. We will be taking that product to California. So this panel and this group here is really a phenomenal place to showcase this project. And I wanted to thank you all for inviting me.
Thanks a lot, Brooke. We just heard that Siemens Energy is involved in a lot of projects. One of the key players when it comes to electrolyzers. So, Nakul, could you just go on and present your company?
Sure. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nakul Prasad. I'm in corporate strategy at Siemens Energy and really focus on power techs. And incidentally, I started out as a gas turbine combustion engineer, so kind of hydrogen made that switch also for me possible, kind of a natural pivot. But just a quick overview of what we really do, because we do a lot of things. We're pretty much an integrated energy company, so we have 3 verticals, mainly power generation based on gas-fired power plants. We have industrial applications, we have the transmission business, and a new energy business, which is focused on hydrogen, especially electrolyzers. Plus, our portfolio company, Gamesa, Siemens Gamesa, which produces wind energy. So all of them are really closely tied to hydrogen now, both from today's businesses. So co-firing of gas turbine obviously has become a very strong talking point and a very strong R&D driver as well for us to help decarbonize our core asset portfolio. We have reciprocating compressors as well, which will be needed to transport and store hydrogen, electrolyze, of course, the core of the power track system, and the wind turbines providing the necessary electricity. Now, in terms of projects, Brooke has unfortunately stole my thunder already. I want to talk a bit about Haro Oni, but I think Brooke has done a fantastic job, and I would really echo it's an exciting project for us from an OEM perspective as well. Really deploying large-scale electrolysis, integrating this with renewables, and really enabling the global trade of renewable energy. I think that's also one of the key value propositions of this kind of approach, especially when we look at the, let's say, challenging situations now, Ukraine, Russia. It's also, apart from the tragic human losses we're seeing, it's also put a lot of challenge on energy security and kind of respark the debate. And that is an example of how to really reshift the supply chain and make energy delivery across all sectors much greener. In addition to that kind of e-fuel based approach, what we also, of course, do is to try to tie in the re-electrification part. So we have a number of gas turbine projects. One is called High Flex Power in France, which is an existing unit, a combined heat and power unit, an SGT 400 gas turbine, about, I think, 11 or 12 megawatt, if I'm not mistaken. And what we're doing is we are kind of retrofitting this unit to be able to produce 100% hydrogen using electrolysis to deliver the hydrogen. And now it's a kind of a closed loop system of a combined heat and power system. And the beauty is here, it's really taking a majority of the existing asset and leaving it as is, and really just making punctual changes to really transform that unit into a carbon-free asset. So that's some of the activities, apart from exciting projects like Haroni, we're pursuing as well.
Thanks a lot, Nakul. Of course, the maritime sector is one of the most interesting potential target markets for e-fuels. And if you produce e-fuels, you need some off-taker, you need someone who's able to use it. And if I'm right, Narendra, you are using e-fuels in ships. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so good morning and good afternoon, guys. So my name is Narendra Pal. I work for Hornblower, and this company was started in 1980 in San Francisco. And basically, we started in the field of cruise and entertainment. But now, if you see, we are in different, related areas, and like water-based experience, overnight experience, and land-based experience, and also ferry and transportation. And recently, we also bought the, shipyard. We operate in more than 110 countries right now, and mostly in North America, big presence. And we have been in, leader in green technology. Like if you see, decades ago, we started hybrid and hydrogen. So, and just without wasting more time, we have going directly on the projects. We have basically a hydrogen project, like a couple of them. First one you will see in a couple of weeks, the first hydrogen ferry in US that will be operating in San Francisco Bay Area. So that is called Sea Change. So that its build was, coordinated by us. Like we coordinated its build at Seattle, and it is a 100% hydrogen ferry, and using gaseous hydrogen on board, and about 360 kilowatt of fuel cell and 250 kilograms of compressed hydrogen on board. And and it can, like, passenger wise, it's like around 70 to 80 passengers can carry. So it's coming. That's first project. The other project we just got approval from Coast Guard. It's like 700 passenger, 600 passenger ferry, kind of big boat. It will be operating in Alcatraz area, in San Francisco. And so, but this is not like 100% powered by hydrogen. The hydrogen fuel cell. That power is only to augment the existing power, which is basically battery, like 1.6 megawatt hours of battery on board, and 100 kilowatt fuel cell only. So we are still thinking we might increase that one. But that's something we are talking to the approving authorities. So that's the one. And then the third project, which is a really big project, we just started last year, which is like DOE funded project. It's under H2 at scale. And under this project, we will be, generating hydrogen on a floating platform in San Francisco Bay. And this hydrogen will be 100% green hydrogen, utilizing hydroelectricity. And we will be generating on board, we'll be storing on board that floating platform, and dispensing to other vessels. So idea is to create a ecosystem in Bay Area, and that's really important, particularly for the marine side. Otherwise, availability is really challenge. So and we are hoping that we'll be able to develop the ecosystem in this Bay Area, and we will be able to replicate at other places in US and outside US also. So that's overall in hydrogen area. E-fuel right now that I'm not sure that we are using. Whether few projects we just started, but that's what is experienced. And thank you. Like I'm really excited to join this panel and share my experiences.
Thanks a lot. I think all of those first projects needs first movers like you, who maybe pay a little bit extra to realize first project, if it's hydrogen or e-fuels. Let's now talk about what is needed to scale up the hydrogen economy. Here in Brussels, we have an ongoing debate during the Green Deal. All political files are open. So currently there's basically no security on invest, because everything is discussed. The European Commission has announced to use 2.6% of hydrogen and e-fuels in the European fuel market by 2030. That's a huge number, but too many question marks are not answered yet, or not solved, and that's the reason why large projects are still are not realized, or the final investment decision is waiting. I'm interested how the situation in the US is. What is your business case, or how do you realize those first projects? Is it tax incentives, or are there target markets like Porsche, who probably have customers who can afford a little bit more for synthetic fuel? So maybe Broke, you can start again, giving us some insights. I mean, if you announce a large project like this in Texas, I'm pretty sure you have done your calculations, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do believe it's a combination of a lot of things, right? Our capital stack is very large. And so, in order to keep the fuel pricing competitive for an off-taker to recognize, we do need to realize some sort of incentives. For example, the reason that we intend to take the fuels to California is because California has the LCFS crediting market in place and a very robust carbon accounting system that does allow for a premium to be applied or credited on top of the cost of the fuel itself, right? And so markets like that are created through the regulation and statutorily are the markets that will be targeted first with these large scale projects. Similar to your point about the directives in Europe, increasing the percentage of RFNBO or e-fuel allowance that allows for double crediting. It's markets like that, we believe, that dangle the carrots, if you will, that really incentivize development companies in particular, and then likely long term, the larger energy companies will look at doing projects similarly. But we believe our competitive advantage is first mover in the market, and we are trying to force scale of electrolyzer production, for example. I had the good fortune of being in Germany last week at the Siemens facility and got to walk through, where they're fabricating the stacks for their larger equipment. And so, recognizing and starting to partner with businesses that have the foresight and investment of scaling up manufacturing is also critically important to our success. And so, to your point, things like incentive, and then things like, companies like Siemens, for example, that do recognize the future market growth and the ability to commercialize long term and are willing to put capital at risk in order to do so are important, alliances and strategic alliances to make. So, at a federal level in the US, if things, come into place like hydrogen production tax credit, those will further incentivize and I believe unleash some of these projects. So obviously we very much watch the regulation as it gets drafted and participate in, communities and organizations like the eFuels Alliance, so we can understand how the markets are moving and where to focus our efforts. So I've rambled, so I hope I answered your question, Tobias.
No, thanks a lot. Also for mentioning the eFuel Alliance again. Cool. Siemens is a global company, of course. So I guess you have a good overview about what are first potential target markets. Is it the European Union? I have the feeling that we are debating a lot, but not really acting. Or are there other target markets you see from a global perspective? And maybe in addition, what are the first application where to use hydrogen and its derivatives? Is it aviation and shipping, like a lot of people want to see e-fuels in? Or is it maybe other target markets where we need renewable energy carriers as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think, first of all, Brooke, I think summarized it quite well. And I just want to echo, I mean, first movers are required, somebody who takes the risk. It's still a very volatile market, right? And in addition to a comment, I really also want to highlight, it's also an offtake issue, right? I mean, that's one thing to produce at scale, but are you really securing your offtake? Because you have to build a lot of infrastructure. You have to build your production facility. You'll have to build CO2 pipelines. You'll have to have a direct air capture plant, which is by no means cheap at this stage. So there's a lot of ingredients which are very expensive, and tax incentives will help the or the hydrogen hub discussions here in the US. So I don't know if everybody's aware of it, but the DOE, Department of Energy, is, as part of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, is releasing close to $9 billion, if I'm not mistaken, into developing hydrogen hubs in the US. So we'll see a lot of cash flows now, investments into this. We've already seen a lot of partnerships develop. I think that's already sparked a lot of activities across the value chain from production to end use. So it's really sort of, I think, kickstarting now. We're kind of in an inflection point in the US, what we're seeing. I think you're right. Europe has definitely been sort of an early market. It hasn't been, I mean, there is adoption. It's not been an S-curve yet. We're still getting there. But at least the European Union, with the renewable energy directives and the 2.6% you mentioned, we have the 40 gigawatt targets, the German national hydrogen strategy, and so on. So they're setting at least capacity targets, which is also spurring investments, or at least spurring deployment. But other countries as well are very interesting. The Middle East, for instance, we're looking at a SAF project in, I believe it's Abu Dhabi, with airline companies as well, very similar to what our own is doing. So SAF, aviation fuels, is going to be definitely a very interesting vertical. I believe Australia could be a very interesting market as well, due to really availability of renewables, and also building a supply chain to Japan, for instance, in many different sort of vectors for hydrogen. So I think the opportunities are pretty much everywhere there where there's renewable energy, where there's cheap renewable energy available. And I think now with the kind of local government incentives, we're going to see a stronger adoption now. So, but coming back sort of to, I would like to focus on the US really specifically, and just re-emphasize my point with the hydrogen infrastructure bill and this momentum, what's happening here in different pockets of the US. So it's not only California, it's not only Texas. We're seeing stuff, partnerships happening in Mississippi, in Alabama, and all of these places. So it's really across the US. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff happening now.
And what about the applications? Will it be more
the applications,
aviation
yes,
and maritime, or do we see some e-fuels in road as well?
Well, so I don't want to sort of call myself now an expert in terms of e-fuel usage as end use, but what I see is, at least from a hydrogen perspective, transport definitely going to be a strong adoption. So obviously short haul is going to be more EV driven, but long haul, either in form of hydrogen or even of e-fuels, definitely an uptake. Industry, I think, is going to be a big one. We're looking at steel, cement, very hard to decarbonize sectors. I think these are the key verticals we're going to see really driving this inflection towards really high momentum now.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now, Rendra, what about your business model? Is it the customers who are able to or want to pay a little bit more if they take a climate neutral ship or travel climate neutral, or are there some political incentives or maybe also fees or regulations obligations that you have to fulfill?
Yeah, it's twofold, I guess. One thing is like a company willing to support the environment, so that's a big thing, particularly for the first movers, that is required. So that is with the company, and the other one is mostly guided by the regulation. So for example, in Norway there is a Ford. Okay, so in the Flam. So Flam is one place. So there they said, okay, no more conventional fuel ferries by beyond 2026. So that becomes kind of local also and the global standard. So because maybe not 26, in other places it might be 36, but it is coming, everybody is seeing, and that becomes the benchmark, and so that guides you. Okay, so if you cannot operate with the conventional, there is no point. So you have to go zero. So that's a region. That's the example, one of the example. And in US also is no different. Like where suppose, for example, San Francisco Bay Area, they may tomorrow announce, okay, we don't want diesel, vessels, or particularly maybe even very minimal hybrid also with diesel and electric also. We don't want. We want zero. And it's coming because the governor announced by 2035, none of the cars sold in California will be on conventional fuels. They have to be on zero emission. So choice is battery and hydrogen, and maybe e-fuel can come. So that's we have to see whether it makes sense efficiency wise or life cycle analysis. I don't know if that has been done. It certainly gives you advantage using e-fuels in terms of transportation and those areas. But overall, does it make sense in certain areas? Yes, like ammonia. If you are talking about deep sea, yes, it makes sense. But I don't think any part of the world government will allow to use in passenger ships ammonia because of its concern. So those are like, it's not like one solution will be applied everywhere. So it's like there are so many factors which decides. And talking about the cost and all, in my personal view, it's like a very complicated issue. Whatever you pay is just a number, not more than that, because that is regulator, and it depends highly what you want, your government want for the local environment. It's totally guided by that. And in California, again, like by 2045, all the heavy duty like trucks and buses, they have to be on zero. So they already started planning now. So, and these kind of projects will definitely help, and that's the reason there is a big push from the bigger companies like Siemens and other big business houses to invest heavily on hydrogen. Obviously, they have to be cautious. It's like a for-profit company. They have to worry about whether they are parking or that kind of funds makes sense or not. So those will be there, but it is coming. That's my personal view.
May I ask you one more question? You said truck and buses have to go zero. Does it mean zero from a net global perspective, so zero CO2, which is possible with e-fuels as well, or does it mean zero at the exhaust pipe, so which is only possible with going electric or with a fuel cell?
As I read, it's that zero emission, so it's a kind of interpretation. That's how e-fuel is just something new to me, but I have been new. But it's that can be convinced, or at least in the shorter terms, if you are carbon neutral, so that can be, because for e-fuel you are capturing from atmosphere and then making e-fuels, and obviously that gives you a lot of advantage in terms of you can use in existing infrastructure. So that's a big advantage. So I think it can be, but I don't know. It only says like zero emission, so it's kind of interpretation.
Yeah, that's a lot of challenges, or the same challenge we are facing in Europe here, that regulations for road transport are only focusing at the exhaust pipe and not considering the whole life cycle footprint of a vehicle. And of course, if you're just measuring at the exhaust pipe, the automotive industry will go to electric or hydrogen and won't consider e-fuels if it's not possible to reach the regulative targets with that. Yeah, so maybe this is something we need to work on in the US or in California as well.
I want to add one important
yes.
point. Like as for like doing these projects for a couple of years, like, and I've been in hydrogen field for the last 22 decades at least. So regulation is really important. Regulation for the standards, and also for enabling the technologies to use, because that's kind of one of the bigger roadblock. Like there may be a lot of companies who want to start the new projects, but that they cannot, because the regulation doesn't support using hydrogen as such. So a lot of work need to be done, and so that we can save a lot of time.
Yeah, Broke, I often have the feeling that there's a huge hype about hydrogen. Everyone talks about hydrogen. If you see market values or capitalizations of hydrogen companies, it's always amazing. But what about e-fuels? We know the advantage is I can use an existing infrastructure and I can address an existing fleet stock. How well known are e-fuels in the US? Do politicians or customers even know about that alternative?
I would say it's a fairly newly introduced product, right? Even just joining HIF 2 years ago, it was something that I learned about, when starting off. And so, there is a whole education process involved with the regulators and legislators, absolutely. So, we have to have presence and introduce our projects to the people who are influential in the language that does get adopted in the regulation. And again, that's why, we participate in different groups and sounding arms that also advocate for e-fuels as part of the stack. I view us as a global decarbonization company long-term. And so, given the crisis that we're in, if we just start as an e-fuels company making gasoline, because that's where the incentives lie today, and it's the most easily adaptable because the existing infrastructure is all in place, and so the consumer is not impacted at all, by switching, from an e-fuel or switching from conventional gasoline to an e-fuel. But long term, and Nakul spoke about it very explicitly, direct air capture is something that we are very focused on developing and deploying at scale as well. And so I believe ultimately that, our initial large scale projects will produce gasoline. And then, again, your point about the maritime and aviation industry, really needing a liquid fuel solution because, batteries and even fuel cells, have not been adopted at scale that can support long haul flights and long marine transport. So, I believe that our second and third phase projects in the US will focus on, jet fuel as the final product. But, long term, if the hydrogen economy continues to grow and the infrastructure adopted where there's fueling stations available and pipelines and liquefaction, made available, I would not be upset if my company is a green hydrogen production company and a direct air capture company. And I believe that that's the beauty of this energy transition phase that we're in is, we're focusing on solving an immediate problem by using, developing these e-fuels. But, as more and more regulation is adopted, that spurs, infrastructure being built that is, completely carbon free, then we can be a hydrogen production company and a carbon sink for, removing CO2 from the atmosphere and permanently sequestering it as opposed to, utilizing it. And so it's just a really exciting, business and time to be in where, given how regulation gets put in place and what companies and new ideas come to fruition, we are going to be able to pivot and adopt to those changes. But today immediately solve a need for carbon neutral fuels.
Thanks again. I think that definitely makes sense. So you'd directly hydrogen because it's more efficient wherever possible. And I think there's a lot of use cases where you need hydrogen directly in chemical industry and steel factories, for example. But there will be also areas where you need hydrocarbons, where hydrogen is probably not the best answer to the issue, like aviation or maritime. And of course, then there should be a competition for usages in between I'm pretty sure and still believe in market competition that this will bring the best solution. So if one more question, if you're maybe have the goal of 2.6% of RFMBOs, which are renewable fuels of non-biological origin, for everyone who's not used to that term, which means hydrogen and eFuels, in 2030. What do you think, how many fuels will be there in the US by 2030?
So HIF alone plans to build 3 large-scale facilities in the US, each one producing about 200 million gallons of gasoline initially, and approximately the same for jet if we looked at that. And so that's 600 million gallons of e-fuels a year, which in US consumption standards, that's not a ton, right? It's about 1.5 days of US consumption. But I just believe that, we have to start chipping away at the problem. And so, while we talk about being, first to market, I would, gladly have competition and other, through renewable diesel projects and other biofuels. I believe that there are, many solutions that have to be put in place, to really solve our global carbon target or global carbon reduction targets. And so welcome, more and more projects being announced and being, developed and FID'd. Again, in relation to our specific projects, for every 200 million gallons of gasoline, we equate that to about, taking 400,000 internal combustion engines and converting them to carbon neutrality. And so, again, when you think about the global demand, that does not satisfy, even a drop of really what the need is for targets in, just the transportation sector alone. But, what I further like is, methanol as sort of the first step in our process. If we go away from fuels because we were able to, resolve the transportation sector completely, methanols can be refined into plastics and olefins and others for clothing. So the really cool thing about this, hydrocarbon-ish derivative is everything you can use conventional, derived from conventional gasoline and oils, you can do with this renewable process. And so I feel like the opportunities are endless, regardless of where the regulation goes.
Okay, maybe one short additional question to you, Brooke. What are your expected production costs? Can you give us a range or a number here?
Yeah, so I rarely, people always ask me what my cost in dollars per kilogram of hydrogen is. And I know the Chile values because I can correlate that to how, inexpensive our wind is. And so I will say, specific to our Chilean projects, we expect to produce hydrogen at sub $2 per kilogram. Again, the wind resource is phenomenal. After we pay for the, windmills, it's basically free, right? Because of the capacity factors. And so very low cost hydrogen in Chile. With regards to the gasoline being produced in the US, we are targeting to hit California below the, our goal and our plan is to have it be cost competitive with conventional gasoline, and then using the LCFS market participation offset the incremental cost that it does cost to produce the fuel. So I know, given the Russia-Ukraine crisis, gasoline prices are, really high, but prior to that, we were targeting to hit California, at a price that was competitive, including the LCFS uplift.
Okay, thanks a lot. So even if it's just first projects, and I think it's definitely that we see a multi-billion euro or dollar market until 2030 coming here, which is interesting for investors, I think, as well. And especially I see a lot of movement in the fuel industry right now. Unfortunately, a bit late. If I might add, I would I would hope that those development would be 10 years earlier or something like this. But let's go on, Nakul. I'm interested in how the current energy crisis. So especially I'm German, so we are highly dependent on Russian energy, importing a lot of gas, importing a lot of oil. We see energy prices increasing around the globe. Is this helping you in selling hydrogen and e-fuel projects? Is there a further is there a movement getting away from fossil fuels much faster than before the brutal invasion of Russia in the Ukraine?
I mean, I think it's a bit difficult to say. I mean, it's just very fresh, right? So we're kind of readjusting to the whole situation. So, I mean, I would have said before, I think a coal to gas shift would have been stronger before this whole crisis, because now phasing out coal requires reliable capacity. So we're looking at, I'm talking now in the power sector, we're looking at hydrogen-fired, hydrogen-ready gas turbines that could have really filled the bridge. Now, of course, with gas prices increasing, reliance on gas, or at least the intent of reliance of gas to be reduced from the Ukraine. I don't know what's going to happen in the intermittent phase. We're going to see LNG terminals being built now, a different supply chain being built up. So I think what will happen is definitely an increase in, let's say, interest in building hydrogen projects. So really diversifying as quickly as possible. How that's going to manifest, I don't know. I don't know the political discussions that are going on in Europe. But that is my speculation, that it could actually accelerate, on the one hand, deployment of offshore overseas renewables. I mean, obviously, Germany does not have sufficient capacity, renewable capacity, to meet the entire demand. I mean, by no means. So we need to look at different other countries' options, like Chile or maybe Australia or even the US. I mean, Texas, I think, is one of the greatest places for renewable energy and for producing hydrogen, both through wind and solar. So there are different options, I think, which will be discussed now. But I don't think I can comment now on the immediate, let's say, impact on our sales funnel or on the project development. I think there's a lot of things happening still, and people are trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, of course, it's quite early. The European Commission will present next Wednesday the Repower EU package, where they already announced that they want to import 10 million tons of hydrogen, green hydrogen, in addition until 2030, in addition to the European hydrogen strategy. Also want to increase the biogas production, for example. Yeah, so I'm looking forward, and maybe this is an advantage of the terrible situation we are in right now, that some projects will be realized faster. So I finally got some. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just add one more point? Because I've been closely listening also to the discussion with Brooke in terms of the pathways, right? And also Narendra, we're talking about what's the future going to look like? Is it only going to be hydrogen? Is it going to be e-fuels? Is there going to be some sort of mix? And I think what we need, and I think the push for e-fuels is the right move, is a diversification. We cannot just bank on, let's say, hydrogen fuel cells in the future or batteries. So I think a healthy mix of different approaches, and e-fuels, I think, is a perfect vector. Not only solving the sort of mid-range problem on the time scale, but also diversifying a mix of production pathways and increasing the resiliency, really, of providing low cost and low carbon energy, and really decarbonizing. And again, we need to keep the goal in mind. I think not a sort of dogmatic approach. I think the goal is to reduce CO2. The goal is also, I think, to maintain resiliency, to maintain security, supply security. So really looking at this sort of triangle of KPIs, and also sort of one comment related to that. That's also a struggle from a regulatory point of view, because we had the discussion about, okay, where is the CO2 emission? Is it tailpipe? Is it life cycle? And I think that's extremely important to have a common framework globally. to ensure really that we have the same standard definition. And I believe a life cycle assessment is very important. And that's something we're actually looking at in the Haroni project, really certifying the green energy, for instance, to say, okay, across the entire value chain from production to transportation and so on, really certifying each step to give the off-taker really a guarantee that this is green energy you're buying here, and or at least a guaranteed carbon content. I think that's a better way to put it.
Right. There are much more countries available which could produce e-fuels or hydrogen and export it than we are importing fossil fuels from right now. And some countries like Saudi Arabia or something like this have the possibility to change their business model, to invest the money that they earn right now, because I think in some years the solar radiation is more valuable than the stuff they get out of the ground. But that's my personal view on that. Finally, we got some question from the chat. Thanks for that. Miho is asking, will hydrogen suppliers provide two different grades of hydrogen to hydrogen engines and fuel cell vehicles? Hydrogen engines can use a low-grade hydrogen. I don't know, Narendra, can you answer that question, or should I pass it to someone else?
I can take it. You know, it will be really challenge because you know, building double you know, infrastructure, and how to you know, separate the engine grade hydrogen from the fuel cell, and what happens if they are got mixed, because a fuel cell cannot take any you know kind of sulfur and those things which engines can tolerate. So it will be really may not be practical, but it can be discussed. Maybe a certain location, or maybe at a bulk you know, site, it can be provided. That's not a challenge, but at the dispensing or retail side, it will be a challenge.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. So thanks a lot. I think we are entering almost the last 10 minutes. So I would like, I know it's not Christmas time, but I would like to have your wishes, maybe to Politiken or to customers. What is needed to get your business ongoing and developing much faster. So tell us what is needed, what should be the next steps, and I would like to start again with Brooke.
Okay, well, if it was Christmas and I had my wish, you know, we need help from two sides, right? So we talked about the electrolyzers and the direct air capture, and really forcing scale of both of those components of our project. So, you know, right now, manufacturing capacity of electrolyzers in the world is, you know, sub 1 gigawatt, probably, if you total all of the providers together. But, you know, we see announcements of, you know, the various equipment suppliers expanding that capacity. And so, again, working in partnership with Siemens, you know, we really are targeting, you know, these very large scale projects, you know, 2 gigawatts of, you know, electrolyzer capacity specific to one project, either in Chile or US. And so, you know, we need, you know, we need manufacturing capacity to expand. And then obviously the direct air capture, not only an expansion of it, but the cost to produce and the efficiencies and economies of it to really, you know, come down at, you know, $1,000 a ton of CO2, that will never be economic or viable. And so we need to, you know, get past this sort of technology gap of recognizing that it is a solution, but that we cannot scale today, to being able to really mass produce it and scale it to bring the cost down for the capacity that we need. And then, you know, secondly, on the off-taker or the regulatory side, I would say, you know, right now it's important to have incentives in place, like I spoke about the hydrogen production tax credit, for example, or other regulatory environments where there are carrots to be dangled and you know, cost realized to offset the expense of the projects as they are right now. And so, But the beauty of these tax incentives is those really do spawn industry to expand and to to build the infrastructure and the manufacturing capacity in place so that those subsidies after a time can go away. I mean, if you look at the renewable energy market in the US, where the wind and solar production is heavily subsidized for a number of years, 10, 15 plus years. And now the cost of solar panels and wind turbines have come down so significantly and also have become much more efficient in the footprint that they operate in. And so I think that, a push from both sides, manufacturing, and then also from, incentives and or off-takers willing to pay a premium initially are really what's going to, move this industry from a few first market movers and risk takers with the support of very strong partners like Siemens to an industry that grows and can supplement the fossil or the conventional fuel production industry. So just a little small ask.
Some wishes. Interesting. You mentioned that manufacturing is already a bottleneck. That's I think a good way of handing over to Nakul. What are your plans? Is there not electrolyzer production capacity planned? And what would be your wishes for a future hydrogen economy?
I think definitely manufacturing is going to be a key one right now. The current issue is we have gigawatt scale factories now, which we are slowly getting up and running. The problem though is the demand is not yet there. So it's kind of a chicken egg problem. So first you need to create the marketplace, you need to create the demand. Then I think OEMs like us can react and build the capacity. Obviously we would like to have support, incentives and so on. That would be extremely helpful to spur that development. But I think again, key is really developing a sustainable market. And that means also from an incentive perspective, I think targeting both producers, off-takers, and all the intermediaries in between. As I mentioned, I think initially, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built. So there's a lot of players in this. We need to be collaborative. That's also my wish list. And I think that's also happening now more than it used to be in the past. I think the US government has done a great job now with the incentives, with the hydrogen hub incentives. It's a bit of a different approach than Europe. So here it's pretty much giving the incentives and let the market figure out the technology, which I think is the right approach. I think in Europe, it's a bit more prescribed. Maybe a combination of the two really can also help, having some sort of capacity targets, at least guidelines. So I think that's important. What I would wish for would be a bit more consistency, and I'm talking both at state level in the US as well as internationally. So what do I mean? I'm having really more consistent incentives across states, definitions of credits and so on, but also having a more harmonized approach of what really clean energy is. I think that's also going to be a big problem moving forward. Once we start importing, exporting green energy, how do you really measure it? Border tax adjustments. I mean, some of these sort of topics will come up. So I think transparency needs to be there, and common standards need to be defined, and that will be extremely helpful. And I think that sort of with the kind of events you're running now, these virtual delegations, I attended the other one, the virtual delegation to the US a couple of weeks ago. So I think this is very important to really foster international collaboration, learning from each other, really picking up, because there are different paces in different countries. So there's lots to learn from, not to repeat the same mistakes. And I think with that, I think we're already pretty good. And we got the right foundation now. It's really up to us now to pick it up, and yeah. So I see it in a positive way. Let's say I have a wish list, but I think a lot of them have already been fulfilled. So don't want to be too greedy. Let's do our work.
That's good. That's good that you're already satisfied. Narendra, you have the last words and your last wishes to the audience. I don't know who is watching us, but what from your perspective is needed right now?
I would say like there are a couple of things. Obviously, regulation from the government and the incentives, and when I talk about regulation and incentives, obviously they cannot be like in isolation. Like it's not just something coming from the government. It's like a cooperation, collaboration with the industry and user, and so government has an important part, but later on industry has to survive or survive on its own. So it's like everything, like right now, immediately it may be if you will make sense. So yes, because our, as a society, our target is we should not exceed 1.5 degrees C. That's our target, So how to do it? And there may be different ways, and so it's like a collaborative way. Everybody has their role, and that's my final word, I guess.
Okay, thanks a lot. Then I'm pretty much in time. I would like to thank all of you. I think that was really interesting and a lot of insight on upcoming projects, also production prices, volumes that can be produced until 2030, some political wishes we still have, but we need something we can work on. That's good, so we can keep our job. And but I'm really convinced that this is a good starting point, and we will see hopefully much more hydrogen and synthetic fuels in future. And with that, I'm handing over to Preston again.
Exactly. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Nakul. And thank you, Narendra, for joining us today. We loved the discussion. I think it was the perfect way to see what next can be done with hydrogen and e-fuels as we look towards the future here. If any of the attendees would like to get in contact with any of our delegation members, please reach out to myself and any of my colleagues at GACC West. Our contact information can be found at our website, gaccwest.com. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we wish you a healthy and safe new year here as we approach, mid-summer now. So as we approach at least the beginning of it. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. It was nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.